Hello, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, good middle of the night, everybody. Nice to see you all here. I see that some people have already been introducing themselves in the chat on the right. Thank you very much for doing that. I'm Peter. I live in Amsterdam. I'll introduce myself a little bit more in a minute. If you did just join, welcome to this webinar. About organizing your task manager. So if you did just join, I would love it if you could say hi in the chat like people have been doing. Chat is over on the right-hand side of your screen. And just tell me where you're from. I always love to see where everybody is from. It's nice to see that I've got a nice global audience going on. So that's lovely to see. So thanks everybody for showing up. Just so you're aware, software we're using here is Webinar Ninja. Webinar Ninja has a chat. That's cool. You guys can chat with each other. And I will kind of keep an eye on the chat. If you have a question for me, however, because we are going to have a live portion, well, this whole thing is live. We are going to have an interaction portion of this webinar. I would love it if you could actually use the question feature for that rather than the chat. So if you scroll down below me, you'll see that there's a questions tab, and it will let you ask a question. So if you put in your questions, whenever they come to you, then when we get to the part of the webinar where I'll be answering your questions, I will see them, and then I'll be able to answer them, and they'll get tagged for anybody watching it back later. So questions, better use the questions panel. So if you scroll down, you should see that. You'll also see that there should be an offers panel. So at the end of the webinar, I'll make you an offer related to one of my courses, and there's just some details about the offer in there. So that should be good as well. Now let me pull up the slides because I did prepare some slides for today. Try and keep it really interesting for you guys. So if one of you could confirm in the chat that you're currently looking at my slides, that would be fantastic, because this is my second time ever using Webinar Ninja or something. So thank you, Jason. Michael. So when software is new and you still got to find your way around, it's good to check with people sometimes. So anyway, thanks everybody for being here. So today we're going to talk about organizing your task manager. Now, I don't know what level you're at with organizing your task manager, but I'm going to be talking about some of the basic principles, and then we'll have sort of a live section. So this is the agenda for today. I'll tell you a little bit about who I am. Then we'll talk about high-level organization for your task manager. At a high level, like what do you want the organization to be? And that's like kind of the place to start. And we'll move on to talking about listing your projects and listing your tasks and how you want to set that up within the high-level organization. Then we'll talk about how to write good task names, which is a very underrated part of getting organized and organizing your task manager, is to actually write good task names. So we'll talk about that as well. Then we'll have the interactive part of the webinar, where we'll talk about your situation. So you can ask me any questions and I'll answer those. And maybe I'll do a little demo as well in one of my in the task manager that I use to show you guys how to do things if there's time for that. And then we'll wrap up and I'll share the offer with you that I've got for you today for one of my courses. I'll try to keep it to about an hour. So let's see how it goes. Don't want to get you guys bored. Okay, so who am I? I don't know how many of you guys are familiar with me. I see some familiar names over in the chat, but just in case, my name is Peter Uckes. I'm a former litigation consultant, a very different career from what I do now. But when I worked as a litigation consultant, I really learned how to pay a lot of attention to detail. I also really learned how you should not organize your task manager because nobody that I was working with had any clue how to properly organize their tasks or their projects or anything like that. I mean, it's a miracle that we got stuff done, I think. And so these days, I teach people how to be more productive and how to be more organized. And a lot of that is based on my experience of what not to do. So I sell 3 productivity courses, and I have about 700 or more than 700 now happy students. So really happy about that. And those are my 2 courses about task management specifically. One is Organize Your Life with Things 3. So that's my course on Things 3. Another one is Get Stuff Done with OmniFocus 3. It's my course on OmniFocus. And each of those kind of teach you a workflow on how to use a task manager and how to be able to rely on a task manager to make sure that you're not missing deadlines, that you're doing things that are important to you. And then I have a 3rd course that's a more recent course. It's called Big Picture Productivity. This is a bigger, more encompassing course, which is all about taking action on your goals. And I'll tell you a little bit more about this 3rd course specifically at the end of the webinar and make you an offer related to that as well. Some of my other personal interests, because I always like to share my personal interests, I think it helps to connect with people. Really love scuba diving. Not doing much scuba diving this year. I was able to do some earlier in the year, but traveling is not happening as much as I think probably many of you are not traveling right now. I also really like to do public speaking. I'm vegan. I'm also interested in sports such as Formula One and the NFL. Let's see whether the NFL season starts for anybody who are the Americans over here. Michael, nice to see another Eagles fan. Let's hope that starts. That would be nice to see. Formula One doing a great job with coronavirus. But yeah, let's see about the NFL. Anyway, that's enough about me. That's enough about me. Let's talk about organizing your task manager. And like I said, we're gonna start with high level. Like what should be the first thing you do when you're organizing your task manager? So I like to talk about hats that you're wearing, about roles that you play. So if you think about your life and as you go through your days, go through your weeks, you're really wearing a lot of hats. You're doing a lot of different things. So for example, you may be a partner to your wife, your husband. You may be a traveler. You may go on a lot of trips. Maybe you're someone who speaks at conferences. So you're like a speaker. Sometimes you're doing your taxes, you're keeping your books, so maybe sometimes you're kind of like an administrator of your own life. Maybe you do yoga, so you consider yourself a yogi. So you've got all these different hats that you wear, different roles that you play. And when you're organizing your task manager, that's a great place to start. So I like to think of these roles as kind of domains, and we're going to organize your task manager by domain. So I don't know which task manager you're using, right? I personally use Things 3. For many, many years, I also used OmniFocus. I love both of those. Those are my favorite two task managers, and I would recommend that you use one of those two. If you're using a different task manager, a lot of the same principles will apply, but because there's so many out there, I can't go into specifics on any particular one. For those of you using Things 3, top level organization is called areas, right? In OmniFocus, the terminology would be folders. And so create a folder or an area for each kind of role that you play, right? For every hat that you wear. So for me, I like to go scuba diving. So and I often combine that with traveling. So I kind of have a travel, / diving area. So I plan my trips in there and stuff like that. Then I like to think of myself as a student, as a lifelong student. I'm always trying to get better at things that I do. So I have a learning category, right? So I don't need to necessarily call this area or folder student, but I'll call it learning. And the same thing, I have one that's called admin for like when I put on my administrator hat and I'm like, all right, Leo, let's take care of some of my admin stuff. Now, no need to be super strict here. So the top level organization is really something that's just do it more or less by these roles, by these hats that you wear. And that's a good starting point. There's really no need to get like super strict about this. Pick one that seems to make sense to you based on, maybe you have one for like relationships and stuff like that. If it doesn't work, you can always change it later. But that's how I would encourage you to organize it. And versus, what are some things some alternative ways that you could organize your task manager that I sometimes see people do that are not helpful? Like I'll be working with people sometimes. I do these one-on-one sessions, right? And someone will have sort of their goals listed. And each goal will be a top level folder or area on their task manager. And that just doesn't tend to work very well for reasons that I'll explain a little bit later. So start by organizing in terms of these domains, roles, hats, whatever you want to call it. So that's my first to do for you today. I'm going to give you 3 to-dos specifically about organizing your task manager. So first one is create an area or a folder for each of your roles or domains. After you do that, you want to go list your projects and your tasks. So let's get a little bit more specific on that. Really important that you think in terms of projects. So when it comes to task management, what are the 2 basic units of task management? They're tasks and projects. Those are the 2 basic units of things that we have. There are things like goals, right? And so you might think that those have to do with task management, but something like a goal is a bit further removed from your task management, or something like your values, your principles, your life purpose. Those things also are further removed from your task manager. That's not really a day-to-day thing. Now you want to be doing things day-to-day to help you achieve your goals, live out your life's purpose or mission, or however you want to phrase that. Actually, that's what my course Big Picture Productivity is about. But on the day-to-day, when you're managing your tasks, you really want to be thinking in terms of tasks and projects. Those 2 things, tasks and projects, are the units that you want to work with. So develop the habit of thinking in terms of projects. Like, what is a project that I can do and complete that will help me achieve one of my goals? And for each role, you'll have one or more projects. So now we have a hierarchy. So you've got your areas listed in your task manager, or your folders, or whatever it's called in whatever app you're using. And each of those represents a hat that you wear: admin, health, learning, relationships, right? Maybe you'll have one for work, or let's say you're a software developer, it could be like software development, something like that. And then in each of these areas, you want to have projects. So these are the concrete things that you're working on. And projects have to be completable, right? So a project might be like, create a proposal for working with client XYZ. That's an example of a project. And so in each of your areas, you're going to have some projects. So it's a hierarchical thing. You've got your roles that are at the top level, and then you've got your projects sitting under each of these roles. So projects can help you achieve specific goals. The example that I thought of the other day was like, good project is run a workshop on best practices for remote work. Very timely. I think if you have some best practices for remote work, highly encourage you to share that with other people. A lot of people working remotely right now. But projects can also be to keep up with ongoing commitments. So for example, prepare a monthly board meeting. That's a project too. And but even though your board meeting happens monthly, preparing for one instance of a board meeting is sort of a project, right? And you're completing that at a certain point. At some point, you've prepared for it. You're done with the project. So think in terms of the first level, the roles, the hats. Second level, the project. Now you're going to find that not everything is a project. There are tasks that you do. Like I said, the two units, kind of basic units of task management, are projects and tasks. And sometimes you find yourself wanting to do something, needing to do something, feeling like you should do something, and it's not a project. So what is the difference between a task and a project? If you're probably going to do it all at once, it's just a task, right? So if I put vacuum the floor, I'm going to vacuum the floor all at once. That's a task. It's not a project. Doesn't make sense to break that down into components. And so what you want is for each of your roles, you want to have a miscellaneous bucket, right? And so if you're using things 3, you can add tasks directly to an area. So your top level areas, which like mirror your roles, they can have tasks directly. And by the way, I'm going to demonstrate this in a little bit. So if you're kind of following along, you're like not sure exactly what I mean by how to organize this in a specific task manager, I'll share my screen, show you the different things later. If you use an OmniFocus, what I suggest you do is create a single action list and call it miscellaneous, and just put that as like the first project or list underneath each folder that represents one of your roles. So that's to-do number 2. Like I said, we're going to have 3 to-dos for you today. The first one is to do that high-level organization by role, by hat, whatever you want to call it. And to-do number 2 is start listing your projects that you've got for each role. And if you've got anything that is a task, it doesn't qualify to be a project, list those directly under the area. Or if you use an OmniFocus or something similar, create like a miscellaneous list to put underneath that role. Then the question is, how do you actually write good task names? Because for your task manager to be properly organized, it's important that you've got the high-level organization down. It's important that you think in terms of projects, and that your projects are, completable, they're true projects and stuff, and that you know what goes where. But it's also important that the actual tasks, like the most key unit in your task manager, make sense, that you know what to do with them, and that they're actionable. So how do you write good task names? This is something that I think is very underrated. People don't really talk about too often when they're talking about task management. Like when I watch YouTube videos by people talking about productivity, it's often like, check out this cool new app. And I'm like, that's fantastic. But like, you're doing such a poor job, listing your tasks. Like, you don't need a fancy app, because it's much better to like get the basics down. And writing good task names is such a basic thing. Like, like grab like a notebook if you must, but write good task names. So how do you write good task names? You want to be precise and concise. So what do I mean by that? You want to make sure that your task names are really specific, precise, that they give the necessary amount of detail, and that they're concise. Concise means like complete, but not longer than it needs to be, right? So complete description of the task, but not overly long. So you want to give all the information that you can distinguish what this task is, but not have it be overly long. Let's talk about some examples. Okay, and by the way, I don't know if any of you joined a little bit later, but I'll just repeat right now. If you've got any questions, okay, go ahead and ask those questions at the bottom. So there's a chat on the right, so you're welcome to chat about whatever, and I'll kind of keep an eye on the chat. If you got any questions, there's going to be a section in the webinar later where I'll answer your questions, but just ask them in the questions thing below. I see that Matt asks, is there an offer for people owning the 2 courses already? There will be, in fact, Matt. So, but yeah, I'll get to those questions later. So how do you write a good task name? Always start with a verb. Any task, literally any task that goes in your task manager should start with a verb. Doesn't start with a noun, doesn't start, right? Starts with a verb. So for example, order, I don't know, order groceries if you have groceries delivered, something like that, right? Every single task should start with a verb. A good task name should also describe what you're going to do. This one's pretty obvious, right? Clean the kitchen sink, right? But consider summarizing the how. So I find that a lot of people write task names that are quite short and not super descriptive. So like clean the kitchen is like, okay, maybe that works for you, but I find that there's actually a lot of things in my kitchen I don't necessarily want to clean every single one when I write that down. But so, for example, you might say, coat the serving board with olive oil. Like I've got this nice wooden serving board, right? And when you first get it, and maybe once every couple of years or something, you just want to coat it a little bit with some oil. The oil will like seep in basically to the wood and make it a bit more waterproof and just make it last longer and feel nicer and stuff. Okay. So you want to be kind of specific, like coat the serving board with olive oil. That's a nice specific level of task naming that you want to be at. If you've got a lot of detail, just leave it in the notes field. Like if you've got, if you're like, try a new recipe or something like that, you don't need to go and list like the 15 steps in the name, right? Any good task manager will have a notes field for every single task. And if there are any details like a recipe or whatever, or just a reminder to yourself, what are the steps, go ahead, put that in the notes field. Then the date field. When I work with people, I see it so often that people put dates in the title of their task. So a task will be like, get back to Matt by Friday. It's like, that's just like a poorly written task name. Your task manager is going to have a date field. It's going to have like a deadline functionality, right? And so if you have to get back to Matt by Friday, just put the deadline on to Friday. Just set the deadline to Friday. And instead write, get back to Matt, and then about what you're going to get back to him about, right? So don't mention dates in the task name. Dates go in the task metadata field. So here's some examples of what not to do. These are some of my favorites. It's like message Alejandro. Like, great, that makes sense now. If I like add a task to my task manager right now and I say message Alejandro, that's great. But what happens when 5 weeks later, I see that task is still sitting in my task manager? I'm like, gee, I don't remember what I was supposed to message Alejandro about. So it's kind of a useless task name, right? So you really want to add a lot more detail, or maybe not a lot, but some detail. So make it clear enough that it triggers a thing in your head where you're like, huh, that's right. I was supposed to message Alejandro about that. So it could be like, message Alejandro about the new table we ordered, whatever. What else not to do? Lose weight. Oh boy, I have so much to say about this one. Another one could be build muscle, which is something that I want to do. A terrible name for a task. Terrible name for a task. But yeah, I see this a lot. It's not actionable at all. Like if I have a task in my task manager that says build muscle, like what am I going to do? Literally picture it. What am I going to do? I mean, it probably involves me going to the gym, right? But not just once. It probably involves me going to the gym like repeatedly. So there are a bunch of other things I'm going to do. Make sure I eat enough protein. Make sure I get enough sleep. So that's not even a project. That's just like a goal, right? Losing weight in this case is a goal, not a task. And so tasks need to be a lot more specific and completable. So instead of losing weight, you might say like, hire a personal trainer. Anyway, we'll get to what you should do. Don't do this. Don't be really vague like this. It really doesn't help. And it prevents you from taking action. It's going to make you feel really disorganized as well. Another one not to do is accountant. So I'll see this sometimes when I'm working with people, and it's these one word, and often it's a noun, task names. And it's the same thing as like message Alejandro, except this is like even more vague. It's like, what the bleep am I supposed to do with my accountant, right? I don't know. So I understand that sometimes when people want to enter their tasks, they're just trying to list them really, really rapidly. But if you take 30 seconds to write your task out more specifically, if you just take a breath, step back, write it out more specifically, you're really going to help yourself in the long run. Sort of by curating a nice list of precise tasks over time, you're going to look at them and easily have an overview. You're going to have a lower mental load. Whereas if your task manager is full of all of these examples, like I'm showing you of what not to do, it's just going to be very difficult for you to be able to estimate how much time is that going to take, how much energy is that going to take. Like, you're going to have to think, what was I supposed to do again? It's just going to get messy. Another thing not to do is like cancel subscription, because like, okay, which one? By when is another good one. Again, like I said, you don't want to have the dates in the title of the task. You want to have those in the deadline field. But you definitely want to be more specific than that. Finally, a good example of what not to do is, like I said earlier, get back to Andrew by August 5th. Okay, take this date information, put it in the appropriate date field. Some examples about what not to do when organizing your task manager. Now, how can we write these better? Let's just walk through these pretty rapidly. You might say, ask Alejandro to make a reservation at the restaurant for a board meeting. In fact, this is a task that I completed yesterday. Schedule an appointment with the personal trainer that Rob put me in touch with. Really clear, really clear. Instead of saying lose weight, you're going to say schedule an appointment with the personal trainer. Which personal trainer? The one that Rob put me in touch with. That's really nice and specific. Ask my accountant to determine whether to register a VAT collection in Turkey. This is something I got to do. So sitting in my task manager, very specific. Talk to my accountant. What am I talking to them about, right? Cancel or renew subscription to The Economist. I subscribe to The Economist, and so I have a periodic task. It's just asking me to decide, do I want to cancel or renew my subscription, okay? Another good task example might be reply to Andrew about speaking at his virtual conference. So you'll notice that these are actually quite long task names. Maybe good task names they're longer than you might think. And this is something I often find when I work with people, is that they really need a lot more detail in their task names. And this is, like I said, such an important part of task management. Even if you've got your high-level organization sorted, even if you're used to thinking in terms of projects, you've got some nice completable projects listed and stuff, it can really still be difficult to actually take action if you don't have your tasks listed out specifically. Like, think about it. If you have tasks that are this specific, it's super easy to work through them. You don't have to decide in the moment what to do, right? The time when you're deciding what to do is when you're doing your weekly review or when you're entering the task. In the moment, you just do. You see these tasks and you just do. So consider adding more detail to your tasks. Sometimes a task is unclear. This is something that, it pops up from time to time. Sometimes you just don't know how. Like, how am I supposed to do this thing? So you want to have something in your task manager, but you're not quite sure what is the action that you're supposed to be taking, or you don't know exactly what you want. And in this case, just turn getting clarity into a task. So I'll often have tasks that are like, figure out how to. Right. So right now I'm setting up new software for students of my course, Big Picture Productivity, setting up a place where they can chat with each other and stuff. Might have more to tell you about that in some future webinars. And so, when I'm figuring out something about this software, I'll have a task for myself that says, figure out how to, right? Rather than, let's say it's like, figure out how to change the font or something like that. Rather than saying, change the font, right? I'm not really sure yet how to do it. So I don't know if it's going to take me a lot of time. I don't know like what the technical level of proficiency is that I need to have or anything like that. So it's really nice to have a task that's like, figure out how to, because that just describes my current reality. It's really helpful for me to like describe, okay, what is this task going to involve? And once I know, then I will put the more detailed task of actually doing it in my task manager and work through it whenever I can. I see, by the way, that Khalid is asking questions in the chat. Khalid, awesome that you've got questions. Love it. Can you please use the questions feature to ask them? And I'll get back to you later. Just scroll down below sort of the main screen and you'll see a questions tab and you can ask questions right there. That'd be great. Thank you. Other examples of tasks that you might have when something is unclear is like, investigate whether I want to ... For example, I'm currently investigating whether I want to go surfing in Portugal. So we've got a task that's investigate whether I want to go surfing in Portugal. Another one is might be define the scope of. So again, if you've got something that you're not sure if it's like a big project, small project, not a project at all, what is it? Just create a task that says define the scope of. Really actionable, really handy for you to just get started with that. And this way you can take action without like just looking at that big fuzzy task that's like you've been procrastinating on. Just break it down into small steps. Garrett says he uses research a lot. Yeah, that's basically the same thing. When I say figure out how to, I think that's basically the same as research, Garrett. So I think that's a great one. Here's one way to think about it. Okay, if I'm taking over your task manager, like if I'm taking over your tasks, you send me your list of tasks from your task manager, I'm looking at it or whatever, would I know what to do? Would I know what to do? Or would I be like, I don't know what this means. I don't know what this refers to. So try and get to the level of specificity in writing your tasks. And this, I mean, the same is pretty much true for the areas or folders, right? And the project names. Project names also very important that you be very specific, concise, precise. So if I took over your tasks, would I know what to do? If not, get more specific. That's a really good way to think about it. So I guess that's another to-do that I can give you. Is go over your list of tasks and ask yourself, okay, if Peter looked at this, like, would he know what to do? Of course, not in the certain sense of like, do I have all the skills that you have? I don't know, maybe you're like a painter or whatever, I'm not a painter, but would I at least know what it looks like, right? So ask yourself that, and if not, get more specific. And that's really to do 3 right here is after you've got the roles set up in the areas or folders, sort of the top level roles, then you start listing your projects. Then you want to fill each project and maybe fill sort of the miscellaneous buckets that I talked about with well-written tasks. It's okay when you're brainstorming or doing a brain dump, as I like to talk about it, to sometimes just get stuff out of your brain real fast, but certainly when you're doing your weekly review, and I hope that every single one of you consistently does a weekly review every week. This is important, guys and girls. If you're doing this, create really well-written tasks. So during your weekly review, get that precision in there, right? Be more specific about what it is that you need to do. We'll make it much easier to stay organized as well as take action. Time to demonstrate. I'll try to keep this short because I want to make sure that there's a lot of time for you guys. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen. And you're going to see my task manager things. So I'm just going to share that. And then if, again, one of you could confirm that you can see that, that would be handy. Can you currently see my things? Yes, I have multiple yeses. Fantastic, fantastic. So what might this look like? I'm not going to explain the details about things, by the way. If you want to learn specifically how to work with things, check out my videos either on YouTube or enroll in my course, Organize Your Life with Things 3. Just want to give you a sense of how to do this. So in things, I might have some areas. And so one area I like to have is admin. Like I said, sometimes I put on my administrator hat and I'm like administering my own life, basically. Sometimes I lift weights, so or I do other things that sort of have to do with my health. I'm basically taking care of my mind, taking care of my body. So all of those things go in health. Includes, for example, when I meditate. I meditate daily. Meditator is one of the hats that I wear, but I think of that as a health thing. So it goes in the health area. Okay. Another one might be relationships, because like like I said, your husband, wife, daughter, uncle, all of those things, those are hats you might wear. Create a relationships bucket for that, okay? And so, of course, for a lot of people, a lot of the tasks that they want to manage is like work tasks, okay? So for me, I might have an area called business because I think of myself as the entrepreneur, the business owner. If you don't have your own business, you could just call this work. It's no problem. Just think of yourself as like worker. So you've got the basic organization here, and then you want to have projects. And so this is pretty straightforward. Create a new project. And like I said, top level organization is these roles. Below that, we've got the organization where we're at the level of what are projects that you can complete. So what is an admin project that I recently did? I hired an accounting firm. So hire an accounting firm. That's something that I did, which I think of as an administrative thing. Actually, you know what? I usually like to call this admin and finances, because I find that those two have a lot of overlap. That's why I put in the admin and finances bucket, if you will, kind of the role of like the administrator. And so you've got your top level roles, and then you've got your projects. Projects are things you could complete. So hire an accounting firm is something for me that had a bunch of steps. For example, it was reach out to 5 accounting firms in Amsterdam, something that I did. And then I said, schedule a phone call with the ones that got back to me. Not all of them got back to me. In fact, if you're subscribed to my email list, you'll get my weekly email tomorrow, and you'll get to read all about how it went when I reached out to a bunch of these accounting firms and how sad it was, the response rate and generally responses. So, so you'll see. At some point, I did decide to start working with one accounting firm, and it was send onboarding materials over to the accounting firm. I'm keeping this really short. There really would be like a lot more steps to this, but you get the idea. It's really a completable thing, completable project, and I'm going to have that sit under my area. And notice that I'm writing detailed, specific task names. So we've got level 1, role, level 2, project, level 3, specific task. Same thing for health. One of the things I did recently was set up a weightlifting schedule. That was a project that I did, and that was something that, I've now set it up. I'm now weightlifting. Another project, as an example for health, would be set up a protein intake routine, because I realized that I probably needed to eat more protein. So that was also something that I did, that I completed, and I've got that set up. And so each of these roles is going to have some projects like this. What might a relationships project look like? It might look like prepare the annual family barbecue. I mean, that might be one of the things that you're doing. For work, you can think of all kinds of projects, right? It could be like prepare data for quarterly reports or whatever. It could be all sorts of projects. And so this is sort of the basic structure. And when you set things up this way, like I said, sometimes you'll find a task that is really a task, not a project in itself. So for things like that, often it's good to think of yourself as like a homemaker as well, or like someone who takes care of your house. You might have a home one. So a lot of these home tasks that might be like, it'd be like order groceries. These days I like to have my groceries delivered, don't have to go into the grocery store where there's lots of other people, so lower my chance of getting COVID. So I like to order my groceries. That's something that's really simple. I just do this all at once, not a project, it's a task. And so that just goes directly under, you'll see under the home area, okay? And under relationships, you might have something like, wish Barbara a happy birthday or something like that. Or like buy her a gift. And so you see, that's just a task sitting directly under the area. So it's kind of the 3-step process for organizing your task manager. What we're going to do now is I will stop sharing my screen. Boom, here I am again. And I'm going to go answer your questions, because that's what I want to do. I want to make this nice and interactive. So I see that there's already some questions in there. If there are other people who have questions, just again, what you do is scroll down below me, and you'll see that there's some tabs, there's questions, and there should also be one called offers, which will be interesting later. Just go to the question and ask your question, rather than asking those things in the chat, because I'll see it if it's here. And I'll just start with the first one that came in. This is not actually a question about task management, but Matt asks, is there an offer for people owning the other 2 courses already? And the answer is yes, Matt. We'll get there. Thank you, Matt. So that was very quick. Fahad asks, what is the difference between a dream and a goal? That is a good question, Fahad. Carla says, a fun quote is, a goal is a dream with a deadline. I think that's a very funny way to look at it. I personally don't really think of things in terms of dreams versus goals. I would say those are just kind of different ways to express the same thing. And goals, that's a big topic. I mean, if you're interested in achieving your goals and like identifying them, having a system for achieving them, you're actually really going to love my course, Big Picture Productivity. But I think of goals broadly, just like anything that you want to do, okay? Or want to achieve. So for example, one thing I would like to do is fly a Spitfire. Spitfire is a World War II fighter plane, very famous fighter plane. Someday in my life, I would like to fly one of those things. Is that going to happen? I don't know. If one of you can hook me up, hook me up. So that would be great. It's something I would like to do. By the way, pro tip, for things that you want that seem outrageous or unlikely, just share that with as many people as you can. Who knows? Maybe someone will like hook you up. So I think of whether that's a dream or a goal doesn't really matter. The question is, how are we going to act on it? And so for something like this, it's tricky. It's tricky. But like another goal that I had, for example, was like build muscle, right? So I want to get more muscular. So I don't want to list that in my task manager just like that. Just build muscle, because it's hard to act on, not actionable. Instead, what you do is you create a project. So the real answer here, Fahad, is like neither of these things, goals or dreams, if those are even different, have a place in your task manager. You don't want to keep those in your task manager. Your task manager contains tasks and projects. There's a lot of other things, by the way, that your task manager should not contain. I often see people using their task manager for reference materials. Those don't go in your task manager. Those go in like Bear, Evernote, Notion, wherever you want to keep them, not in your task manager. And so, list of clients goes in a customer relationship management CRM system, not in your task manager. And so goals and dreams don't go in your task manager. What does go in your task manager is specific, concrete, actionable projects that will help you achieve your goal, achieve your dream. And if you want to learn more about that, you should actually check out my webinar that I did a couple of weeks ago, where I talk more about creating projects and turning your goals into actionable projects. Or if you want to learn a really complete system that you can trust and rely on to do this, you're going to love my course. So anyway, hope that was useful, Fahad. All right, let's move on. Leo asks, how do you deal with tasks that don't have a due date? Do you think about when you'd like to do a specific task, or do you just open most of your lists when you have free time and choose what to do next? Leo. So this is my favorite question. I'll be impressed if there's a question that I like better than this one, because it's such a key foundation to task management, and it's actually really related to organizing. So I really love that you're asking this. Thank you so much for this question. There's a big difference between when any given task or project is due, like when there's a deadline, and when you're going to work on it. For most tasks and projects that have a deadline, you don't want to actually wait until the day of the deadline to work on them. I mean, that's just kind of a crappy way to go through life. Very stressful, always really last minute. Don't do that. The whole point of task management is that you don't do that, just so that you anticipate things. So not all task managers can deal with this. For example, I know a lot of people like Todoist, and if you use Todoist, you cannot do this. So if you use Things, or if you use OmniFocus, there are two types of dates. One is in Things, it's called the when date. The when date is, when do you intend to work on this? Other kind of date is the deadline or the due date. Like, what is the last day by which you have to do this? Because if you don't do it by that date, there's going to be some serious negative consequence, right? Like, you got to file your taxes in a normal year by April 15th, your income taxes. If you don't do that, you may get a penalty or whatever. So you really want to do it by April 15th at the latest. Does that mean you want to do it on April 15th? Probably not. Like, ideally not. You really want to do it before April 15th. That would be a better way to go through life. So a really good task manager, like Things, like OmniFocus, lets you set a deadline and lets you indicate when you intend to work on it. And those two are different. Like Things makes this super easy, and that's why Things is now the task manager that I recommend for most people, because it makes it super easy. There's a deadline, which is like, I have to do it by this date or else there'd be serious consequences. And then there's the when date, which is like, when do you plan to work on it? When do you intend to work on it? And so those things are different. Now, Things and OmniFocus are only available on Apple devices. So a lot of times I get questions from people, and the question is, I do not use Apple devices. What can I do? And there's not great options, unfortunately. I mean, I'm just sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but I have not yet found a task manager that I really like that works sort of across platforms, right? Also on non-Apple platforms, that supports this very important distinction. There are some, like one is called Amazing Marvin. I'm just going to type this in the chat because you guys, it's called Amazing Marvin. You might want to check this out. It's kind of a new task manager, and it's mostly web-based. There is an app. I think the app is very limited. To be fair, it's been a while since I've checked it out. And one of the things about it is it's very customizable. So if you're like a shiny object syndrome sufferer, maybe don't check out Amazing Marvin. And so I have not found, anyways, the point, a task manager that I think is really quality, that's available on all sort of common platforms, that supports this distinction between when you intend to work on something and when something is due. So if you use Apple devices, highly recommend that you use things or OmniFocus precisely because of this reason. If you don't, you might want to check out some alternatives. But for example, if you're using a Todoist or another task manager that's otherwise solid, is Nozbe, they just don't have this distinction. It makes it really awkward. If you do work with a task manager that supports this distinction, absolutely. The way you should do it is you sit down and you plan your day. You either do it the morning of or you do it the night before, and you look at all the list of things that you could do that make sense. And you're like, okay, first of all, which ones are due today? Like, I should definitely do those. You look at which ones are due in the next couple of days. Oh, maybe I want to do one of those so that I can make sure that I complete them ahead of time. And then if there's time left in your day, you do some of the things that are important but not urgent. That's the general workflow. And again, if you want to learn much more about this, I've got lots of good videos on this on YouTube, and also my courses teach you a whole system. That's one of the benefits of taking one of my task management courses. You just learn a whole system that you can use week after week to basically do exactly that. So great question though, Leo, great question. Thank you. Okie dokes. I see Marinda mentions Nirvana HQ. Never heard of it, Marinda. That sounds interesting. I guess I'll take a look at it. Thank you very much. I see that Kai asked a question that's not really a question. So sorry, Kai, I don't know what to do there. If you want to phrase that as in the form of an actual question, just phrase it again, and I will then answer your question. Next question is by Lucas. Lucas asks, how do you handle tasks that must be done during a specific part of the day? For example, a task that must be done between 5 and 6 but has no specific deadline. Good question, Lucas. Those things go in your calendar. That's usually how that works. If you could give me an example, Lucas, that would actually be really helpful. But my first instinct here is to say that should be a calendar event rather than a task, or maybe both. But definitely, if there's something that you have to do at a specific time, that's what your calendar is for. So, like, I got my groceries delivered right before hopping on the webinar here with you folks. So I had a little calendar event that's like, the groceries are being delivered just to make sure I don't schedule something else. Same thing with the laundry. I don't actually I don't have a task in my task manager that says do the laundry. The way I do it is I did this today. I have a task that says schedule the laundry. I live in like apartment building, and we have like a communal laundry. So I have to like reserve a slot. So it says schedule the laundry, like reserve a slot. I put the slot on my calendar. Now it's on my calendar for tomorrow. Just set some alarms on the calendar event so I don't forget about it. But it doesn't really make sense to have it in my task manager because it's not actionable. Like, I can't do it now. I have to wait until that specific time. So that's how I would do that, Lucas. Next up, we've got Giannakis. Did I pronounce that correctly? You're welcome to tell me that I butchered your name and help me pronounce it, by the way. I like try and spell it phonetically or something, but I hope that I was somewhat close. And the question is, what do you do with tasks that don't fit into a project but may fit into an area? Yeah, so that's what I was saying earlier. So if you've got a task that you say, you know what, this is not a project itself, it's not part of any other project, it's just a small task, then you want to just stick it directly into the area. If you're using things in OmniFocus, you want to make sure that each folder, and folders represent your roles, so you want to make sure that each folder that represents a role has a single action list. I like to call it miscellaneous, and that's where you stick those. Really simple, really simple. And yeah, I think that's the answer. Let me know if that didn't make sense. If that didn't make sense, just ask the question in more specific way. I'll try and answer it. Okay, it made sense. There you go. Thanks. Michael asks, how many current/active projects would you say is average for most people? I love this. I'm getting so many questions that are related to my course, Big Picture Productivity. So it's really nice because when I see you guys asking questions that like I cover the answer in the course, it's like, that's nice. That means I'm covering the right things in the course. So I don't like to give numbers here, Michael, because, okay, let's start here. First of all, what I see in a lot of people is their task manager lists many projects. So, I think it was like last week or the week before, I was working with a client, and he had like 50 or 60 projects listed in his task manager. He was using OmniFocus. I mean, you're not working on 50 or 60 projects at a time. You're just not. I mean, you can pretend that you are, but you're not. No. So, like, the way I like to think about it is, let's think of an active project as one that you're likely to work on in the next week or two. Okay, if not, it's kind of at the very least on hold. I'm not saying you won't work on it 3 weeks from now, 4 weeks from now, but if you're not going to work on it this week or next week, consider it to be a project that's kind of on hold. And so there's a couple ways you can do that. If you're finding that you have a lot of projects that are kind of simmering in the background, like for this particular client of mine, what happened is he has a business and he just has a lot of sales leads, sales prospects. So like he's he's exchanging emails with like 40 or 50 people, but this is long running. I mean, it's over the course of months, sometimes over the course of years, that those people, like between when they initially reach out to him and the point where they hire him or decide not to hire him for his services. And so he had a project for each of these people, but then you end up with 50 projects in your task manager that's not really ongoing. Each of them had like 1 or 2 tasks, like send this guy like a short article just to keep in touch or something like that. But that's not really something that you're doing, week to week. Like I was asking him, how many of these things are you gonna work on in the next week or two? And it turns out like very few. So the way to do this in OmniFocus is to just put any project that you're not going to work on in the next week or two, just put it on hold. And if you're using things 3, the way you want to do it is assign it to the someday bucket. Let me share my screen again, just to kind of show you how to do that. So we've got things over here. So let's say I decided, well, hold on. Here's another one. I'll create a new project for you guys, and I'll say, hire a designer to create a visual brand for me. This is something I've been looking into for my business. Like maybe I want to hire a designer to get like a consistent visual brand, which will look professional, be great. Okay. It's something I decided I'm not going to do it right now. Okay. I'm definitely not going to do it in the next 2 weeks. Maybe I'll reevaluate it later, but I'm not going to do it in the next 2 weeks. So then what do? I actually just go ahead and click when and click someday. And see how it like vanishes from the sidebar now? It's no longer here. Now, if I click on admin and finances, I'll see that it's actually sitting here. And by the way, I probably wouldn't put this one under admin and finances. I mean, I would probably have like a marketing area for this. So I'll just chuck that under marketing. Okay, but you get the point. If it's not assigned to someday, what's going to happen is it's going to sit here in the sidebar. But at some point, you may have like I said, 20, 30, 40, 60 projects in the sidebar. You're not realistically going to work on all of these in the next 2 weeks. So if you're not going to work on it in the next 2 weeks, at least you don't think so, I highly recommend that if you use things, you set it to someday just to get it out of the way. It will also then make all tasks that are part of this project not show up under your anytime view. If you use an OmniFocus, the equivalent thing to do would be to put it on hold, put the project on hold. And then in your available perspective, its task also would not show. So that's a very long-winded way, stop sharing, very long-winded way of saying, like, there really is no good average number that I can give you, but you should ask yourself, am I going to work on this in the next 2 weeks? And if the answer is most likely not, it's not an active project, put it on hold, put it on someday. Now, a related question might be, how many projects can you work on in any given period of time? And that's something that I developed a whole system to figure that out. That's in Big Picture Productivity. There's a quarterly planning process in there where what we do is basically say, okay, in the coming quarter, like what are the most important, the key projects for me to work on? How many of those can I work on? And schedule them. What am I going to do in Q3 of this year? What am I going to do in Q4 of this year? What am I going to do in Q1 of next year? And so we assign those that way. And then part of the quarterly planning process is also transferring them from the system where we keep this to the task manager. So there's a lot of detail there. But rather than focusing on any specific number, just be honest with yourself. Like, is this an active project for you right now? And define active as like, I'm going to work on it in the next 2 weeks. Probably you'll find that if you're really honest with yourself, a lot of these things are not active. So just, put them on hold someday, just out of the way. Hope that made sense, Michael. Great clarification. Look at that. I love to hear that. Okay, got a bunch more questions. Garrett asks, do you think it's okay to gather areas of responsibility like finance, health, relationships, etc. as subfolders under a high-level folder called personal to go alongside with work, or does that not provide much value? Well, it is totally okay, Garrett. That is totally okay. No problem whatsoever. Whether you do this or not, it's really not going to matter that much, honestly, for your productivity. If you like it that way, do it that way. It's the kind of thing where I'm like, don't spend time thinking about it. Just try one of these ways. If it doesn't work for you, you'll figure it out real quick and swap it out for the other way. Don't spend too much time thinking about that. it makes a lot of sense. Obviously, the more active projects you have, the more different hats you wear, the more it makes sense to create an additional level of organization, like personal and work. If your task manager supports that, Things doesn't support that, I think it's a design decision on their part to not allow for that. But yeah, if you're using OmniFocus, you can go really, really, really deep in the organization. For most people, I would say probably unnecessary. But if you like it, really no problem whatsoever. And by okay, I guess I mean worthwhile. Garrett says, yeah, whether it's worthwhile, just try it. There's really not one right answer. I'd say for most people, yeah, not going to make much of a difference. Matt asks, how do you deal with a limited planning depth in things? I regularly get frustrated when I want to split stuff up with deadlines. Guessing a little bit here about what Matt means, but it's true that Things 3 compared with other task managers kind of forces you to set things up in a certain way. For example, OmniFocus is extremely customizable. So if you're using OmniFocus, like I said, you can set things up to a great depth, and you can create folders with subfolders and subfolders and stuff. And in Things, you really can't do that. It's just a limitation, Matt. Unfortunately, there's no way to deal with. I mean, I deal with it by it's not an ideal situation. Sometimes I split my projects up if one part of a project has deadlines, or I'll have a big project with certain subparts. In Things 3, you can do headings within project. So I'll use headings, and there's 5 tasks under this heading have a deadline on Monday, 5 tasks under that heading have a deadline of Tuesday. That's how I do it. It's a bit of a manual process. There's no fantastic way to do it. But the thing is, I think there's a bigger point here, which is don't get hung up on the limitations of your task manager. Now, definitely some task managers are not good enough, but maybe I should phrase it as, don't look for a perfect task manager. You're not going to find it. You're not going to find a perfect task manager. There's not going to be any one app that thinks exactly the same way that you do. It's just not out there. And so rather than focusing on what it cannot do, focus on what it can do for you. Ask, is this a net positive to my life? Keep it if it is, which a lot of the times it's going to be. Yeah, unfortunately, every app is just going to have some downsides, and the only way to deal with that, I think, is just to accept it. Maybe there are workarounds, but I wouldn't spend too much energy on it, because it's so likely that you'll end up spending more energy just being frustrated by this than if you just yeah, this is not great, but you know what? Let's move on and let's do stuff. Okay, what have we got next? Michael again. Michael asks, do you still recommend using minimal tags or contexts? Yes. So for those of you using OmniFocus, in OmniFocus, you've got this feature called contexts, which actually in OmniFocus 3 has been transitioned into a tagging system. So really, we can collapse this question down to, do I still recommend using minimal tasks? The answer is yes, or tags. The answer is yes. Just from my experience working with people one-on-one and really digging down in a deep, in-depth session, looking into their task manager, into the workings, I don't know, 9 out of 10 times, someone has set up a lot of tasks, tags, but they never use them. So the thing is, with the organization that I described, areas or folders for roles, projects underneath the roles, well-written tasks in your projects, or maybe directly in your area, there's really not that much need for a tag. So a lot of people will tag things by tasks that take 5 minutes or less, tasks that take 5 to 15 minutes, or tasks that will take me more than 15 minutes. But this is such a weird way, I think, to go through things. It might make sense if you have an excessively large number of tasks, but if you have 300 tasks in your task manager, my question to you is, are you being realistic with yourself? Are these just maybe a lot of things that no friggin' way are you going to get to these things in the next 2 weeks? If so, they should be assigned to someday. You shouldn't really be looking at them. So task management tends to be much more effective when it's simple, when you don't have too many tasks, when you don't have too many tags. And a lot of people don't browse by tag. There are some exceptions here. I like to use the waiting for tag. If, let's say, I email Ryan, I'm waiting for Ryan to get back to me. I cannot move on to the next task until Ryan got back to me. I'll have a task that says waiting for Ryan to get back to me about XYZ, and I'll tag that with the waiting for tag. And then I can click the waiting for tag and see all the people that I'm waiting on. That's helpful. I don't use it too often. I use it sometimes, but I know for some people that's really important. There are other tags that might make sense, but generally speaking, I find, and you should really ask yourself whether you're doing this, is that people who use a lot of tags just do it because they feel out of control. It's a feeling, it's an emotional thing. Like, I'm losing control over my projects, and I will try to regain control by organizing more, by having more organizational detail. So I'm going to tag the bleep out of all my tasks, and like try and compensate for my emotional lack of control that I'm feeling, for the fear that I'm feeling of missing deadlines or whatever, by adding more tags. That's what goes on. That's why most people do this. And I'm telling you, like, if you're feeling out of control, if you're feeling really disorganized, overwhelmed, more tags, not going to solve your problem. What is going to solve your problem is learning a system and then executing on that system consistently. That's why my courses, that's why I designed them the way that I designed them. That's why people like them. That's why the system works for folks. So ask yourself, be honest with yourself. Are you really just wanting to tag because you sort of have this psychological need to control things more? If so, big red flag. Not going to help you out. Probably things that would help you out more is like actually doing your weekly review every week, So, but yeah, that's something that is, I'm gonna leave it here for now because I could go on for another hour and a half about this. So I want to answer some other questions and then wrap it up because we're closing in on an hour already. So, yeah, glad that helped, Mike. Vladislav asks, what about tasks for your employees, which you have to check or review? Is it better to have a special project for every employee, or a task like check letter prepared by Martin? I would probably, good question. Depends on your situation. Really depends on the volume of tasks that you have where you're directly working with other people and it's kind of going back and forth. So first of all, if you're managing like a team of 10 or whatever, and you're constantly assigning tasks to other people, waiting for them to do it, and then for yourself to do stuff, I highly recommend that you use something like Basecamp. Use project management software that's designed to be used by multiple people. I highly recommend that you do that. Now, if you choose to go that route, how you should kind of synchronize between Basecamp and your personal task manager, OmniFocus or Things or whatever it may be, that's a big topic. I don't want to get into that today. In fact, that's a good suggestion for a future webinar. But yeah, so don't try to manage like a ton of people just with your personal task manager. It's probably going to go better if you like set up a dedicated app to use this. I happen to like Basecamp. Now, if this happens every now and then, all right, Carla, thanks for being here. She says she needs to run. So if this happens every now and then, I would say just keep it with tasks like check letter prepared by Martin, and that task may go into a relevant project. Like if there's a project that you're working on together, just keep the organization by role and then projects within roles. And those projects are both going to have tasks that you need to do that are not related to Martin in this case, or tasks that have to do with something that he sends you. I definitely wouldn't create a project for every employee. Now, I don't know if you're using OmniFocus. If you happen to be using OmniFocus, Vladislav, I did create a video. It's definitely part of my course. It may also be up on YouTube. I don't remember whether I put it up on YouTube also, where I show you how you can use a special perspective in OmniFocus that will kind of help you with delegating tasks to other people. But again, I really would only recommend this if you have a low volume of tasks that you're delegating. All right, so I'm just going to answer the 2 remaining questions and then tell you about the offer that I've got for you guys today, and then we'll wrap it up. Rob asks, how do location tags work? That is a very broad question, Rob, so hard to answer. Depends on which task manager you use. If you're using Things, there's no point in using location tags, honestly. They don't do anything for you. If you're using OmniFocus, OmniFocus supports location-based notifications. And the way that works is with tags. So you can create a tag for a specific location, set it up that if you go near that location, you'll get a notification which serves as a reminder for you to do that particular task. So that's helpful. But other than that, it's a bit of a broad question. Final question from Khalid. Are goals divided according to duration? As long or short could make it a little clearer. So the thing is, Khalid, goals, like I said, you really don't want to have goals in your task manager. So what you want in your task manager, again, two things: tasks and projects. Tasks and projects. Those are the two things that you want to have in your task manager. So whether goals are big or small is not really the point. The question is, what is a project that you can act on with actionable steps, with tasks that you can complete, that you'll be done with at some point in the near future, that will help you achieve that goal? Those are the things that you want in your task manager, not goals directly. All right. That was it for the Q&A. Thank you all for asking questions. Let's pull the slideshow back up. Just to wrap this up today. All righty. Oh boy, we're back at the beginning. Let's flick through the slides. Right. I want to take a minute to talk to you about my latest course, which is called Big Picture Productivity, and to make you a special offer related to this course, which I'm pretty excited about because it's like the sort of the most like valuable offer that I've made so far for this course. But what is the course about? The course is about being productive in a big picture sense. Okay, so my first two courses about OmniFocus and things really help you learn a system to manage your tasks, manage your projects day to day and week to week. And that's really important. I mean, that's just so helpful to be able to do that day to day and week to week, and to make sure that you hit your deadlines. Like you don't miss deadlines, right? That you work on the important things as well as the urgent things. But it's still focused on very day to day and week to week. And then people came to me and they said, listen, like I want to achieve my goals. I have these big goals. I'm generally not getting to like working on my goals. I have these dreams, you might say. One of my students said, like, I would really like to move to Sweden someday. I think it was Sweden. I don't remember. With my family, like, what do I do about that in my task manager? And I started thinking about this. And so I ended up developing a system that I packaged into a course, and that I'm now that you can enroll in, and that has already gotten lots of fantastic feedback, and I'm really grateful for that. So Big Picture Productivity is a self-paced course, and it's really all about taking action on your goals. That's kind of the point. There's 5 modules, but the whole course is a system that's designed for you to take action on your goals and achieve them. And to do that, we go from the ground up. We talk about foundations of productivity, and not just productivity like checking off lots of tasks, but like big picture productivity. Like, what does it mean to be productive in a big sense for you, right? What does success in productivity look like for you? We talk about the strategy. We talk about specific tactics, how to connect your goals to your day-to-day task management, how to stay focused. A lot of people get really distracted. They're excited working towards a goal or working on one project, but then the excitement fades and they get distracted by something else. How can you avoid that? And then I talk about how to keep this up in the long term, how to have long-term success. But of course, it's not just only about me talking. So my philosophy is that you will get results when there's theory and action. So just me talking and you doing nothing, that's not really going to result in a lot of things for you, right? And in the same way, it's possible that you're taking a lot of action, but not really in the right direction. And so when you're not taking your action in the right direction, you may not achieve your goals either. So Big Picture Productivity is really a course to help solve this. Now, if you enroll in the course, there's lots of video lessons, worksheets, exercises. There's also support from me, whether by email, using the discussion panel in the course. I'm also working on setting up a community that goes along with the course. I'll be sharing more details about that later. Not accessible yet. Don't take that as a promise. I'm working on that. But so the course is really a fantastic way. That's what it comes down to, for you to achieve your goals. And there's a system that you're going to learn to do that. Some things that people have said about the course are, hey, I realized that I had far more control over my goals than I thought. They're a lot more achievable than you thought, is one of my students said. So I love that. Another student said, hey, it was super helpful to clarify goals. There's a part in the course where I help you clarify your goals, get super clear on what it is that you exactly want, which makes it easier for you to get it. And she said that was just so helpful. So really lovely to hear that. Another student said, listen, like having a system to start with had a much bigger impact on his productivity than having to figure it out for himself. And this is generally true sort of with my courses and with a lot of other courses that people sell online, right? Is like, you could figure everything out yourself. If you had unlimited time, unlimited energy, you could experiment with everything. You could come up with fantastic systems that work for yourself, that help you achieve stuff. But guess what? You don't have unlimited time. You don't have unlimited energy. So it's just so helpful to go through a system that someone else designed, tested. I tested my system with lots of folks. It's based on my other courses, what I learned from working with people one-on-one, And so why reinvent the wheel when you can just learn a system and act on it right away and get results. So I have an offer for you today. So if you enroll in my course, Big Picture Productivity, in the next 3 hours, you get a bonus, and you can choose what you want your bonus to be. Now, there's two options. One is you get access to either my OmniFocus course or my Things course. So I guess it's really three options. So normally these are totally separate. My OmniFocus course and my Things course totally separate from Big Picture Productivity. But if you enroll in the next 3 hours, one option is that you say, listen, I want to enroll, but also enroll in the Things course. Okay. Or I want to enroll, and please also enroll me in the OmniFocus course. And that's a $99 extra value that you're getting when you enroll in Big Picture Productivity in the next 3 hours. Another option is, and this is one that, like, I really don't do this often. This is the first time I'm experimenting with this. I hope I don't get inundated with new students. If you enroll now, you also get a complimentary 60-minute one-on-one coaching with me. And that's valued at $200 based on what I normally charge for working with people one-on-one. So you get to choose either the Things course, the OmniFocus, or a 60-minute one-on-one coaching call. So it can be super helpful as you're going through the course to get some personal one-on-one video feedback with me. So the way this works is we get on Zoom together. This is going to happen sometime in the next couple of weeks. We're going to get on Zoom together. And you can ask me any question you like about productivity. A lot of times what I do with people is we literally go dig into their task manager and we're like restructure things and set things up in a way that really helps them be more productive than they were before, to be better organized. So if you like the kind of thing that we talked about today with organizing your task manager, you might find that the 60-minute one-on-one video coaching over Zoom is actually super helpful. So if you, this is if you enroll in Big Picture Productivity in the next 3 hours. There are some details to this. If you scroll down, you'll see that there is an offer section. And so if you click the offer section, there's a few details about this. For example, if you choose the coaching session, it has to happen by a certain date, sometime in September, I think is what I said. You can't schedule it for like 6 months from now. The other thing is if you enroll, the way it works, just email me right after enrolling. Hey, Peter, I choose this bonus. And then I will either enroll you in the course or I will send you a link where you can schedule your one-on-one coaching session. Just give me some time to respond to you. You know, if you enroll right before midnight, I'll probably respond tomorrow morning. So I do have a question by Rusish. Can we buy the course in payments? No, you cannot. Sorry about that. And Puneet asks, how much time would it take to complete the BPP course? Good question. Big Picture Productivity it's like a sizable course. So one of the modules in particular, the module on goal setting, listing your goals, translating those into actionable projects, is something that's taken people a while. Very hard to say because it depends on how many hours you spend on it. But like I would say, let's say you want to do this on the weekend, I would say probably at least like 5, afternoons or something like that, if you kind of want to do it that way. Like it's an intense course, it's going to take a while. But I did also make it concise, like there's no fluff. I'm really trying to teach you as efficiently as I can. Good thing is it's self-paced. You get access forever. So there's no rush, right? You can enroll and go through it at your own pace. And the good thing is if you get the one-on-one coaching session, you can do that after you've already had a chance to go through the course a little bit. And so you can ask me questions about what you're encountering. So that's my offer for you today. The way to take advantage of it is to just go over to bigpictureproductivity.com. Again, bigpictureproductivity.com, as you see it on your screen. Enroll there. After you enroll, just send me an email at peter@peterrockes.net. You'll find that on my email listed on the sales page and stuff. And anyway, when you enroll, you'll get an email from me. Just reply to an email and say, hey, this is what I'm choosing with my bonus. And then give me a little bit of time and I'll respond by either enrolling you in the course to your liking, the other course, or by sending you a link where you can schedule your one-on-one session. That was it for today. Thank you very much for attending. Really appreciate it that you're here. I know for some people it's a Saturday evening. For me, it's a Saturday evening, a bit of a weird time. I like to do it this time because we got a lot of Americans and for them it's not so late yet, but for the Europeans it might be like, it's 9 p.m. on a Saturday. Anyway, thank you very much. Find my course over at bigpictureproductivity.com and I hope that you enjoy the rest of your day. Ciao.